All right, everybody, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a happy Monday if you're into that sort of masochistic ideology, thought process. This is the Horn Takes podcast, your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It's Exaggeration Monday. We'll do our Trace Otra games recap for week 11 today. We'll have a lot of drunk Sean thoughts on the team and the win against TCU. We'll go around the Big 12, see what that Big 12 championship game race looks like at this point. Check us out on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Generally 12 noon, sometimes a little earlier. Just depends on how the day is. We'll be on YouTube. We throw these things up on Buzzsprout. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can listen at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, we're there. Trace Otra games, week 11. Let's recap it. We were 20-10 coming in, and we were shooting for 4 straight weeks of 3-0 coming into this weekend. Thought we dodged a huge bullet last weekend. Thought we might go 0-3 last weekend. I was pretty confident about this weekend. Let's see how we did. First game up was number 3 Michigan at number 10 Penn State. And we talked about how we thought the home field advantage for Penn State would keep this game close, but they're just not a good football team. Like, give me J.J. McCarthy over this Alar guy from Penn State any day. He looked terrible against Ohio State. He might have looked worse against Michigan on Saturday. We had Michigan winning this game 24-17. We were in a Alar 2-point conversion pass away from being perfect on this one. 24-15 was the final. Folks, we got to talk about this Big Ten lack of athleticism at some point. We're going to have to do that sometime on this show. That game was terrible. It was awful. We'll talk about it some other point. So we're 1-0 right now. Game number 2, number 13, Tennessee at number 14, Missouri. Big question for us in this game was, can this Missouri team come off of a game against Georgia where they went into Athens and played a hell of a game, pushed Georgia to the end of the, pushed Georgia, gave them all they wanted. Could they come back home and get recharged emotionally, physically, spiritually? Maybe. Could they get back to being ready to play a football game against a pretty good Tennessee team a week later? I thought the home field would keep it close, but I felt like Tennessee would win this game in a shootout. I had Tennessee 33-30. Missouri just absolutely skull drags Tennessee at home, 36-7. Congrats to Tennessee, congrats to Missouri. That's a hell of a win. I don't think a lot of people expected that. So now we're 1-1 headed into the rubber match. We got number 9 Ole Miss at number 2 Georgia. We said Ole Miss probably has a puncher's chance because they have a pretty good offense. But I also said I like Georgia to start being impressive at the right time. We talked about how all season long, all Georgia's done is just go and win games, but they haven't looked like a dominant football team in most of those wins. But I felt like this was the time of year they're going to start putting it all together at the right time. Boy, did they. I had Georgia winning this one 38-23 over Ole Miss. Georgia trounces Ole Miss 52-17 between the hedges. 2-1. We don't go perfect, but that's the way it goes sometimes. That brings our season total to 22-11 on Trace Otra games. I'll take it. We had a really rough start, folks. We had a lot of 1-2s to start the season. All right, drunk Sean thoughts on this TCU game. First thing I can say is, man, Texas found a way to win it again. I don't know how many times this team can continue to do what they do, but they somehow just managed to come out roses on the other end. We had Texas winning this game 34-15, and we weren't even close. 29-26 is the final. Texas scores 3 points in the second half. Man, Again, Texas goes into the locker room up big. How many times have we said that? How many times has Texas gone in to the locker room up big in the last 3 seasons? I don't know the exact answer. I'm working on it. It's a lot. It's got to be. I'll say this, for any team that's either been in or kind of hovered around or is like a top 25, type program perennially, like a team you expect to be good. There cannot have ever been a team in that type of position that's had a 3-year stretch of going into halftime up big and figuring out a way to piss it away in the second half. They just cannot score in the second half. It is so baffling to me that I had to just go and I started putting together some stuff, and we'll have some more on that. Maybe on Deep Dive Thursday, maybe on After Action Review. Maybe it'll just be a completely separate topic, but we got to dig into this and figure out what this really looks like. My perception of it is Texas scores a bunch of points in the first half and doesn't score a bunch of points at all in the second half. That's my perception. I want to see the numbers. I want to see what it really looks like on average. I want to see what it really looks like in the Big 12, because that's all that really matters. Texas blows another lead. They're lucky to get out of Fort Worth alive, lucky to get out of Fort Worth with a win. Now they got to go on the road to Ames, Iowa. Face an Iowa State team with a lot to play for right now. An Iowa State program that just, man, and I think it's led by Matt Campbell. That dude just does not like Texas. He either legitimately does not like Texas, or he's just really good at making it seem like he doesn't like Texas, so his team will feed off that. I don't know what the real answer is. I kind of feel like he just doesn't like Texas. We'll talk more about that tomorrow in the Quick and Dirty on Iowa State, and certainly on Thursday during the deep dive for this game. Guys, I am so torn on this Texas team. You look at it on one hand, this team is 9-1. I think the best most Texas fans would have hoped for 10 games into this season would have been 9-1. I don't think there was any Texas fan that legitimately, and I mean in their heart, like, it's easy just to go, man, we're going to be 10-0, baby, at the 10 game mark. It's easy. Fans do that shit all the time. And to me, that's not Nostradamus. That's not prognostication. That's just being a fan. Fans do dumb shit. They say dumb shit. Fan is short for fanatics. So fans say stupid shit all the time. But I don't think there was a single Texas fan that thought Texas would be any better than 9-1 right now. So that's amazing, man. Texas fans, we have been through the ringer for the last decade plus. We've watched a very powerful program go down in flames, like almost in an instant. We've had to endure 2 probably really bad hires since then, and all that comes along with that. Multiple losing seasons, multiple seasons without bowl games, heartbreaking losses. We've had to do all that shit. We should be ecstatic about 9-1. And I think 100% of Texas fans are absolutely ecstatic about 9-1. This team still controls its own destiny in the Big 12. Something this team hasn't really done in a long time. I think this team has the best win in the country. I think going on the road and beating Alabama at this point is the absolute best win in this country. And I don't think there's one that's even close, to be perfectly honest. How quickly the narrative went from this is the worst Alabama team Nick Saban has ever had outside of that very first year. We're talking like dynasty Nick Saban. This is the worst team he's ever had. So now all of a sudden, and I heard the broadcasters on the Alabama game say it, you got to put Alabama in if they're a one-loss team over Texas. If it came down to it between Alabama and Texas at the end of this season, and they're both one-loss teams, and there's one slot open for a one-loss team, you got to put them in because they are light years better, they say, than they were earlier in this season. So the narrative sure has changed. I don't necessarily disagree with the fact that this Bama team is really good. I always thought they were really good. So Texas certainly has the best win in the country, which again, that's something to be proud of. This program has not done anything like that. As a matter of fact, no programs have done anything like what Texas did to go on the road and beat Alabama in the last gazillion years, basically. I think this team definitely deserves to be in all this discussion about one-loss teams and playoffs and who would get in and, you know, should they be in? Should Oregon be above them? Should Bama be above them? All that talk, this team absolutely deserves it. So by all accounts, like Texas fans, we should just all shut the fuck up, right? We shouldn't have anything bad to say, or we shouldn't have any worries about this team, right? Wrong. So on the one hand, you had all that really good stuff, which is all really good stuff. Love it. But then on the other hand, I feel like this Texas team has probably been the least impressive one-loss team for weeks. And sure, we have had some injuries, some very key injuries. And not just offensively, we've had defensive injuries. We've had a ton of injuries this year, and this team has been fighting through injuries basically since the Wyoming game. They've had key guys out. Which I think would be an argument if you were just in all these dogfight types of games that you never had complete control of. But what we've seen this team do is they get these massive leads and then they just can't finish. They cannot finish off inferior teams. Folks, they had the opportunity to just really blow out TCU. They had the opportunity to just really blow out Kansas State. They had the opportunity to just really blow out Houston. And they just could not do it. And that's a problem. And that's not impressive. Style points matter. We don't have them right now. So I told you guys I did some prelim statistical analysis. I just started it. When did I start it? Yesterday afternoon. This team this year already has 6 second half quarters where they got shut out. 6 in 10 games. You just can't do that. You can't do that and win big games. You can't do that and win games big. This team gave away a game to an OU team that let's be frank about it. They're just not that good. They're talented. To me, they're a lot like Texas last year. Talented. When things go right, man, they can drop some points on you. But they're just not like an elite level team right now. So I think Texas fans, there's a lot of stuff for us to be happy about. There's also a lot of things we should be concerned about. And I think I think this Texas team, we just gotta. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about. So we got a little negative on y'all. Let's talk about drunk Sean superlatives. So for those of you that don't know, Exaggeration Monday is just emotional for me. It's all the things I felt and said and did during the game when I had way too many drinks. Most of it is probably not rational. I honestly should just start. I should just start setting up a live feed or something for the games, so y'all could really like. We're 2 days removed now, almost, and so a lot of that emotion is gone. The thought obviously still there, but the emotion is just not the same. We may look into that. I don't know how we'll figure it out. It might be embarrassing. So these are all things I talk about having not rewatched the game, having not looked at any stats at all. Like I have not looked at a stat page once about this game. And I won't until right after this show. And then I'll start digging into all that stuff for our after action review tomorrow, which will be a lot more statistical, a lot less emotional, and a lot more logical. So these are Sean's drunk Sean superlatives from the game. Man, number one, huge effort by Jay Witt on that interception. And by the way, also Xavier Worthy. Jay Witt gets the praise because he ran that shit down, caused a fumble. But Xavier Worthy, and I didn't know this until I didn't realize this during the game. So I saw a tweet this morning that showed a picture of Xavier Worthy on the field when the ball was intercepted. He was under a TCU defender. Don't know how, don't know why. It's just what happened. And so while Jay Witt's running down the field to try to catch this guy and hopefully just make a tackle, Xavier Worthy's also running down the field trying to do the same thing. Jay Witt gets the strip. Xavier Worthy falls on it. Hell of an effort play by both of those guys. And I'm saying this about Xavier, and there's never been a question about Jay Witt and his effort. I think he's just been a guy that's been hurt his entire career at Texas. He's kind of struggled to find a role. He's kind of struggled to be a consistent sort of contributor to the stats that we see, in the stat lines every single week. But he's always been a guy that's going to hustle his ass off. He's always been a guy that's going to lead. He blocks, man. He is a blocking machine on the edge. The effort's always been there for Jay Witt. I think a lot of people, and maybe it was overblown by a lot of people last season, but a lot of people, including myself, felt like Xavier Worthy wasn't putting in a lot of effort at certain times last season. And I'll tell you what, man, he has had a season this year where you can tell that young man's grown up. And so kudos to him. And it's not just Worthy. There's been a lot of guys that have had this same sort of transition where they've completely bought into the culture there at Texas. That was a huge play. T'Vondre Sweat on literally every play. That guy, I know we talk about him like every single week. T'Vondre Sweat is like, if that dude does not get drafted in the first round, I don't know what NFL teams are looking for. I don't know that I've ever seen a dude that big be that quick and that disruptive. Jonathan Brooks, long pass reception, huge. You said it before, Jonathan Brooks is the catalyst of this offense. He did it again. He just makes plays. Jonathan Brooks just makes plays. Vernon Broughton had a big sack in this game. Drunk Sean's pretty sure it was the one that set up the 56-yard field goal. Someone got held on the play. They declined it. and then this guy from TCU. And I swear to God, I heard the announcer say at some point that TCU has struggled on field goals like all season. And then this freaking kid like absolutely destroys one right down the middle from 56 yards. I saw some guys on Twitter like, kind of complaining that Steve Sarkisian did not take the penalty there. And man, I got to be honest, I'm okay with that. If the options are give them another play offensively or let them attempt a 56-yard field goal, I think you go with 56-yard field goal every single time. The only exception may be late in the game when they're either down by 3 or a field goal wins the game for them. Any other time, I'm down with it. Force a 56-yard field goal. Christian Jones for the false start that forced Sark to kick a field goal finally inside the 5-yard line, 10-yard line, whatever. I think that field goal, at that point in the game, it doesn't make a difference in the game. But through those 3 points, any 3 points in the game were a difference in the game. But that's a situation where Sark might have and was going to just go for it again. So praise up to Christian Jones. Worthy and Mitchell, we just talked about Worthy. Mitchell had an amazing game too, receiving. Sanders had a couple of really good catches in this game. Jahdae Barron was just around the line of scrimmage doing Jahdae Barron things the entire game. A lot of stuff to praise off of this Texas team. Let's talk about these blown leads. I don't know how much more any team, but we'll just worry about this Texas team can flirt with these kind of losses or these kind of yeah. How do you just cannot keep flirting with these types of losses and not get burnt? At some point, like probability says you're going to lose one of these. It is not probable that you can continue to do risky things without suffering the consequences of doing risky things. And the way this Texas offense and the way this Texas team plays in second halves is very, very risky. We said it, man. This team just they can't score in the second half. Not only can they not score, but they can't stop the other team from scoring. They got to figure this shit out, man. Like, again, we talked about all the really awesome things about this football team. If you're not concerned with the fact that this team just seems to go on cruise control at halftime, what's crazy is last year we noticed this problem, and I'm sure we weren't the only ones. And really the problem was the first year. I mean, Texas lost 6 games in a row, Sark's first year. 5 of those games, they had second half leads. I believe 4 of those second half leads were double-digit second half leads. So this isn't a problem that's been, just crept up on this team. This is something that started from the beginning with Sark's team here at Texas. It rolled over into 2022. Not as bad. They were able to win a lot of those games that they lost the year before, which again, I think is progress. You want to be able to win games when maybe you're not at your best. You just don't want to not be at your best every single fucking game. And that's what this team does. I mean, maybe that is their best. I don't know. I don't feel like it is. And then we start out this year and we couldn't score at the beginning of the game. I think I think Texas went, it was 2 games for sure. It might have been 3 games in a row where they scored like 21 points in the fourth quarter of games. All of a sudden, we flipped on our heads. We couldn't do anything at the beginning, but this team finished like madmen. And Sark says, well, maybe that's because we preach finishing all year long, all off season long, which that's fair. You focus so much on one part, you lose focus on another part. That can I can deal with that. I'm okay with that. But that can't be what it was, because now coming down the stretch where this Texas team's got to win all these games. We're seeing 2022, 2021 all over again. I think part of it has to do with the way he wants to finish games. We've talked in the past about how his experience, I think, at Alabama as the offensive coordinator of that team put like this maybe unrealistic perception of how games should go. And all of this was in reference to just running the football. We've been pissing and moaning on this show about not running the football for years with Sark, and I say that it's been 3 years. I mean, it hasn't been like decades. We didn't do it. We didn't complain about it on stone tablets, but it's been 2 or 3 years now that we've been talking about this in the running game. And I think he just got so used to these huge plays out of his running game that when he got to Texas and he didn't get these huge plays, in his mind, during the game while all this stuff's going on, the running game's not working. I think the other side of that is, while he was at Alabama and they got big leads, they could come out in the second half and just ram the ball down people's throats and nobody could stop it. They could continue to build their lead by just simply lining up and running the ball. And right now, this Texas offensive line, they can't do that. Not consistently. Seen it some. Seen it at times in games even where they didn't do it consistently enough to get it done. But they're just not those Alabama teams that he was the coordinator of and could lean on that. But and that's what he wants to do. I didn't watch the entire second half of this Georgia and Ole Miss game, but the part I did watch was me looking up, and I had it on the whole time. I just couldn't watch it the whole time. When every time I looked up in the second half of that game, Georgia was running the ball and they were getting big chunks and they were just physically blowing Ole Miss off the football. I think that's what he wants to be able to do. I don't think that's what he can do. I mean, I hope it clicks. I mean, if you keep trying it, one of these days it's going to work, I think. Terrible news out of this game for Texas and Jonathan Brooks. More so for Jonathan Brooks. It's been reported that he's out with a torn ACL. Huge, tough break for him. I mean, I think he's having an outstanding season. I think the NFL draft conversations were starting to pick up for him. It's a tough loss for this team. I've been talking about it all season long, how he's the catalyst of this offense. It's going to be hard to finish out the season with the catalyst of your offense. The good news is the cupboard is not bare. CJ Baxter, super talented guy. I have not been super impressed with him this year, but I think the ability is there. Jaden Blue is the guy we've been talking about all year long, really since spring practice, spring game. Where's that guy? Why is he not getting more carries? Surely he should have been getting carries over a hurt CJ Baxter. He's going to get his chance. Savion Red's a guy that's had a lot of Wildcat stuff this season. He's a running back. Keelan Robinson, another guy. So the cupboard's not bare. All 4 of those guys are talented. They have a nice running back room. Jonathan Brooks was on pace to outproduce Bijan Robinson from last season. So a big loss for Texas. Obviously, hope the best for Jonathan Brooks. He'll be having surgery, I'm assuming, if he hasn't already, here pretty quick. Probably just waiting for the swelling to go down. I don't know if they still do that. That used to be a thing. I think finally, this team kind of reminds me of the TCU team from last year. Lots of talented experience. They just keep finding ways to win games. I kept saying last season, this TCU team deserves all the accolades they're getting. They deserve to make it to the playoff. They deserve to be in that conversation. I didn't think they were good enough to be in that conversation. Like in real life, there's a difference between deserves, which they absolutely deserved, and can compete. And I think we all saw what happened in the playoffs. Yeah, they got to win against Michigan. It took 2 pick sixes for them to beat Michigan. And then Georgia just, and I don't know that there's too many teams that Georgia wouldn't have done that to, but you could tell they just did not belong in that game. I don't know if that TCU team had to deal with the same type of injuries that this Texas team has had to deal with. I kind of figure they haven't and didn't. But this Texas team, man, I know everybody was excited after we beat Bama, and the opportunity was there to maybe run the table. Then we could certainly be talking playoff. This team is just not good enough, I don't think, at this point to compete if they made it to the playoff. I think their most important offensive player is gone for the season. They cannot hold leads. The pass defense is just not good. I think the second half play calling is just not good. They cannot score in the second half. They just go to sleep. You can't do that in the playoffs. Quick recap on Sean's big 4 questions of the game. Can the Texas pass defense step up against the number 2 passing offense in the Big 12? Like I said, I haven't rewatched the game. I haven't looked at any stats, but I feel like no, they did not. I feel like if you give up 26 points and a half, you probably got passed on a lot. Question number 2 was who starts? This was like I wrote this down the morning before it was announced that Quinn Ewers would be playing and would be starting. So then I kind of flipped my question to, okay, well, if it's Quinn, does he finish? He started, finished, and I thought he looked pretty good most of the game. There were some times where I'm pretty sure they took him to the locker room early at the end of the first half. I'm pretty sure there were some times they were showing him on the sideline. He looked like he was in pain, discomfort. He missed a couple throws that I don't think he would normally miss. So I definitely think there was some pain and discomfort for Quinn Ewers in this game. But he passed the ball pretty well, and he had a really big one late to Adonai Mitchell to kind of ice the thing for Texas. Can Texas catch a break? It's so interesting that my question literally was, can the limp-along Longhorns catch a break on the injury front? This was Thursday last week. Absolutely fucking not. They could not catch a break. Again, we talked about it. Jonathan Brooks goes down late on a play that looked just innocent enough from an injury perspective. I know the TCU guy grabbed his ankle and gave it a little extra twist. I don't know if that's when the injury occurred. I don't even know which leg it is. I have to think it was that right leg. That's kind of what it looked like when he was limping around on the sidelines. Obviously was on crutches after the game. Obviously been reported that he tore his ACL. So no, Texas cannot stay. The limp-along Longhorns cannot catch a break on the injury front. And then question number 4 was, can this O-line match their dominant performance against K-State on the road at TCU? They absolutely kept Quinn Ewers clean. They were perfect in pass pro. But from a running game perspective, it did not look dominant to me. It looked like there was a lot of tackles around the line of scrimmage for TCU. A lot of piles of bodies that just did not get moved. I think Texas popped a couple. Just seemed like watching this game, and again, we have not rewatched it. We have not looked at stats, that the running game did not perform very well in this game. And I think you look at it, it all starts with the offensive line. Around the Big 12, what is the Big 12 playoff or Big 12 championship game look like now? Well, coming into the weekend, it was crystal clear. It was Texas and Okie State. All they had to do was win out. It's muddy again now. Texas is sitting alone at the top. Still not out of the clear, though. Oklahoma State had a chance to stay up there tied for first place, but they got absolutely thumped by Central Florida in a monsoon. Central Florida ambushed Oklahoma State. I mean, if you didn't get a chance to watch that and you have a way to go back and watch it, wow. Oklahoma State did not look like a team on the up and up that had any chance to play in any conference championship game in that game. They're now sitting in a four-way tie for second with OU, K-State, and Iowa State. Outlook heading in is really Texas. For Texas, you just got to keep winning, and they absolutely have to beat Iowa State. If they do not beat Iowa State, folks, Texas is not in the Big 12 championship game. It does not matter what else happens. So a game, I think you're 4 or 5 weeks into the season. Nobody's looking ahead to this Iowa State game and thinking this is a game Texas is going to have to win to make it to the Big 12 championship game. But it absolutely is. Oklahoma State already has wins over OU and K-State, so they need ISU to lose, and they need to win out to get in. K-State and Oklahoma both need to win out. Hope Oklahoma State drops another game. And then for Kansas State, Oklahoma would have to drop another game as well. I don't think it's likely that Oklahoma State's going to drop another game. They got Houston and BYU, but shit, man, I don't know that anybody. I mean, are Houston and BYU really any worse than Central Florida has been so far? I don't think so. So who knows what the hell is going to happen? I still kind of think it's going to end up being Texas and Oklahoma State. Just a few random sports thoughts, random college football thoughts. 4-star cornerback Wardell Mack, a guy that committed to Florida earlier this year, a guy that was really high on Texas. He's out of Louisiana, but he's always been high on Texas and Florida for some reason. Commits to Florida, and we talked about it when he committed, especially with Florida maybe not going to have that great of a season this year. We thought, man, if Texas can stay in touch, keep those lines of communication open, this might be a guy they can flip. Well, they flipped him last night. This he's a 4-star, one of the best cornerbacks in the country. Huge need position for this team. One thing that Mac Brown did and Dwayne Akina did is they just recruited a bunch of really good athletes at defensive back. And they started those guys out as safeties, got them experience, and then they started playing corner. I think one big weakness in Steve Sarkisian's recruiting to this point has been the secondary, and it shows on the field. As many dogs as they can get, as many athletic guys as they can bring in, all the better. Let the cream rise to the top. Big flip for Texas. Kobe Black is still out there, a 5-star, one of the highest rated prospects left that has not committed. Supposedly he's coming to Texas. That's what all the crystal balls say. We'll see. But that'd be big to have a class with those two guys in it. Jimbo Fisher is finally fired from Texas A&M. We talked about this, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, how it was starting to get restless down in Aggieville. And we just thought this was coming. The craziest shit about this whole thing is Texas A&M has to pay this man over $75 million to leave. And when it's all said and done, they're going to be well over $100 million down the hole, down the shitter in their investment of Jimbo Fisher. And they have won absolutely nothing. Jimbo Fisher, if I was like in the coaching world, I would be like hiring Jimbo Fisher's agent immediately. I don't know how he got that deal. Just goes to show you how stupid otherwise smart people could be. Somebody, I don't know if it was Ross Bjork, said the reason we paid him for 10 years is because we couldn't lock him up for 15 years. Thank God. Thank God you couldn't lock him up for 15 years. Holy shit. Candidates, who the hell knows? Bill Lucci says this won't be a big money hire. This won't be a big name hire. Supposedly they're looking at guys like Elko at Duke, Leipold from KU, Traylor from UTSA. I've heard Cliff Kingsbury's name. Probably since Lucci said it will be a big, huge splash hire. That dude is like consistently wrong. There's a Deion Sanders campaign picking up steam. We made jokes about that a couple of weeks ago, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, when we talked about this whole Jimbo Fisher probably going to be out at A&M by the end of this season. I don't know if I mean, there's a lot of these big, like Stephen A. Smith is all on the bandwagon. Send Deion's ass to Texas A&M. He ain't never going to be able to recruit at Colorado like he could recruit at Texas A&M, which I find funny because, I mean, maybe just a few weeks ago, all these guys were on Deion Sanders, all behind him. He's going to recruit. He's going to do so great. No, he's not. And that's what I said. And I've been getting beat up for months for it. That's fine. We'll keep rolling. I don't really feel like Deion to Texas A&M is a realistic thing. I don't think his son can transfer again for free. And by for free, I mean without sitting out. Travis Hunter, I don't think can transfer again for free without sitting out. And honestly, I think those are the only two people on that roster that Deion Sanders legitimately gives two shits about. I don't think he's going to do that. I think that the cult of Deion and the cult down in Colleyville, if they were to mix the all that shit they said about Cerna, turning that collider, that super collider back on, if Deion Sanders went to Texas A&M, like all that shit would actually happen. I mean, you talk about like just the biggest clash of underlying ideology. Like it's never going to happen. I will be shocked as hell if that thing ever went down. I don't think it's going to happen. We'll see. Word on the street is that someone has already told them no. I don't know who. I don't know under what context. That's just what I had heard on some college football message boards. Real quick before we wrap up the show, we got to talk about this Washington player that dropped this ball on the 2-yard line as he's running in for an interception. Why does this keep happening? And I don't know the kid's name. If I knew the kid's name, I wouldn't call it out because I'm not about that. But like, what is this? How? This has happened so many times. It's like, I get the first person that excitedly was running into the end zone and just dropped the ball too soon. I get that. Like, man, that's a rough mistake. How in the hell do people keep doing it? It's like a group of dudes, like 50 dudes standing next to an electric fence, and they all just sit there and watch individuals step out of the group to piss on this electric fence, and they don't learn from it. It's like a group of people standing around a hole, and when someone jumps into the hole, they don't come back ever. But yet people just keep jumping into the fucking hole because they feel like there's something different going to happen. How in the hell today do you run down the field in any capacity to score a touchdown and drop the ball 2 yards short of the end zone? What? How hard is it to just run to the back of the end zone with the football in your hand? I mean, not only is this like an incredibly stupid play every single time it happens, but that kid he could have cost Washington a spot in the college football playoff. If Utah wins that game, and at this point in the game was close. I think it was a 1-score game. If Utah somehow won that game, I think Washington's out of the college football playoff picture. That's second. And that was an opportunity for them to completely ice it and be done with it. I just don't get it, man. Somebody help me understand. If I was running to the end zone to score, I'm going to run through the back of the end zone with the ball in my hand, and then I'm going to go find the first official I can find, and I'm going to hand him the ball. Every time. Make it make sense, folks. I don't get it. Join us tomorrow at noon for the after action review. We may or may not have Mike Harge from AM 1300 The Zone and from Texas Sports Unfiltered. We had him last Tuesday. The recording went all to shit. So we're trying to bring him back on, and we were having a really good conversation. I enjoyed it. Hopefully we can get him on tomorrow. We'll do some more random college sports thoughts. We'll do the quick and dirty on this Iowa State game coming up. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Please follow and subscribe. Won't cost you guys a thing. We appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. It's a new week. Keep your horns up. Y'all get hooked.